Hello, so tonight we'll be covering the effects of overtraining on skeletal muscle growth and the gene expression. It's a study that was conducted in China, and I will be covering few key points, and we will start off with the purpose of the research, then we will cover the methodology, results, conclusion, limitations, and applications. To begin with, we'll go over the purpose of the research that was to determine the ways overturning affects skeletal muscle growth and the growth-related gene expression over a time frame of 11 experimental weeks. The study was conducted on a rats grouped in an overtraining group, also known as OT, overtraining recovery group, also known as OTR, and the sedentary group. It was found out that the weight of the gastrocnemius muscle was lower for the overtraining group. However, the serum creatine kinase was slightly higher in the OT and the OTR group. These findings suggest that COX2 inhibitors and the UPA mRNA may have discouraged muscle growth induced by overtraining. In other words, the overtraining group experienced a muscle loss due to extraneous exercise and the consequent body inability to recover within a proper amount of time. And I will cover also the hypothesis of the author that was mainly they were trying to find out that overly training during a period of 11 weeks on a treadmill may compromise the growth of the calf muscle, and thus the study was conducted in order to find a possible gene that might have been the responsible in this process. In order to test the hypothesis, it was implemented a training protocol. The level of serum activity was used as an indirect circulating index for the skeletal muscle injuries. It was further analyzed the important role of satellite cell activations, chemotaxis, as well as muscle regeneration. To further analyze the hypothesis, the author was trying to understand whether improper biomechanical or any weakness in the calf muscle was contributed eventually by a gene. Then next, we will cover the methodology. The study was designed in a laboratory where 30 Wistar rats were bought from a biotech company in Shanghai and were fed for a week in a room temperature. All of these rats then were chosen randomly and were assigned to a sedentary group, while the remaining 20 were divided equally in two groups, the overtraining group and the overtraining recovery group. In terms of inclusion criteria, all the rats involved were fed for a week at a temperature of about 20 to 25 degrees Celsius, with a dark and light cycle that included the access to pellets and water. In terms of exclusion, rats in the OT group were terminated 36 hours after last training session, whereas in the OTR group, rats were terminated a week after the last training session. That was necessary because the rats in both groups were subject to muscle harvesting, which involved the anesthetization of the rats in order to dissect the whole right calf muscle so that fat and muscle were removed to further study the effects. It is important to mention that the whole study was conducted by keeping in mind the ethical and moral standards of the International Journal of Sports Medicine. All right, so then we'll go over the results. And the results compare and contrast the sedentary group, which was the control group basically, and the overtraining one. It was found out that the overtraining group was subject to a significant decrease of hemoglobin and testosterone. Furthermore, the muscle weight of the sedentary group was heavier compared to the overtraining group. However, in overtraining recovery group, it was observed a slight increase in muscle weight after 7 days of rest. The serum creatine kinase activity of the overtraining group was definitely higher compared to a sedentary group. At the same time, the serum creatine kinase activity in the overtraining recovery group decreased more than the overtraining group. In other words, high level of serum creatine kinase suggests a muscle damage and thus a decreased performance, which would lead to further injury. It was also analyzed the role of the chemotaxis which may be playing a role in activating satellite cells. The data pointed out that COX2 and the mRNA of the overtraining group were lower compared to the sedentary group. However, after a week of recovery of UPA levels showed the tendency of the normalization, as you can see in the table on the right hand side. And the results proved we could say that they proved the hypothesis in a way, because they proved the author to be right, because overtraining have proven negative effects on the growth and the upkeep of the gastrocnemius muscle. The research showed a lighter weight of the muscle in the overtraining group compared to the sedentary one, which shows the training, which proves that basically training too much may cause little to no gains in the muscle. Furthermore, the serum CK was higher in the overtraining group, which suggests that overtraining cause microtraumas to the muscle that are created at a faster rate than the body can eventually repair. This phenomenon also could expand further to what was known as systematic inflammation, which resulted in the release of small proteins that could cause an immune system response. And next, we will talk about the limitation of the study. There was a mix of method of conducting the research and the timing of the study. The strength of the research was all the quantitative comparison done among the groups, and the evidence provided the evidence provided the author's hypothesis. However, there was a weakness. The study should have not considered a sedentary group, but rather a group that trains from 3 to 4 times a week instead. To explain this further, it would make more sense to compare those results among those that train moderately and regularly instead of those that do not train at all. The overtraining recovery group did not have enough of time to heal physically and mentally. In order to recover from overtraining, it would be better to have a wider frame, the time frame, than bigger than 7 days. And in order to go back to approach an exercise program stronger and more focused than before. In other words, in an ideal scenario, the 3 groups would have been regular training, overtraining, and overtraining recovery with at least 15 days, given recovering mentally takes a little bit longer. And then we will go over the conclusions. There were 3 key points. Overtraining definitely caused muscle injury and compromised muscle growth. Furthermore, this training habit decreased anti-inflammatory cytokines in the muscle. At last, the effect of overtraining brought the expression of COX2 and UPA mRNA, which are responsible for muscle regeneration. And an example of real-world application of these findings may be coaching that will be in schools or even outside schools in any kind of sports that's practiced around the world. But even in the gyms, and I personally go to the gym, so I can relate to that. I would suggest that the personal trainer, along with their training program, they should make the trainees aware of the bad effects that the overtraining has. And a further application would be that given the physical exercise have implication on several body functions, these findings may be adopted to better understand the effects of overtraining on human metabolism and human behavior, since training affects the nervous system, thus the mental health. And that'd be all, pretty much.